Hello students, welcome back. Myself Pushpender Singh and we are going to start with our daily current affairs. So today you will have the current affairs for 25th of January 2021, and here basically through this classes basically we are covering your current affairs portion that are basically asked in your various government competitive examinations. These classes are very useful for your civil services preparation also, conducted by the UPSC. So I'm basically referring the two national newspapers. The first is The Hindu and the second is Indian Express. All right. So these two national newspapers I'm referring. You can also read these newspapers, and I would strictly recommend you to refer the Hindu newspaper for your daily current affairs, especially for the civil services examination or IAS examination. The Indian Express is also equally good. You can refer this also. All right. So let's begin with our lecture. All right. So first news is related to the words of the Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. Okay. So first of all, let's understand what is Biosphere Reserve. So there is, around 18 biosphere reserves are there in our country. All right. And Sundarban is one among them. All right. So first of all, let's understand that this news is related to Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. So what is the Biosphere Reserve? Okay. So Biosphere Reserve is basically a learning place for sustainable development. Okay. So it's a place for the sustainable development where, you can basically test certain set of interdisciplinary approaches, right? Why we test those interdisciplinary approaches, right? So that you can understand, you can manage any changes in the reserve, right? As well as you can interact, right, socially, right, as well as other components like ecological component in the reserve, right? So that ultimate aim was to, you know to prevent any sort of a conflict and management of biodiversity within the biosphere reserve, right? How would you manage that biodiversity? So in the biosphere reserve, generally there is, a zonation. So that zonation would be in such a way that, for example, this is your biosphere reserve. All right. So here you will have the core zone. Here you will have the core zone. So it is a core zone of biosphere reserve. All right, where no human activity is permitted. So in this biosphere reserve, no human activity is permitted, right? Surrounding this core, that may of any area or any shape also, that is called basically buffer zone. Okay, buffer zone. So here the buffer zone is allowed for tourism, okay, and for grazing purpose also. So buffer zone is allowed for grazing and the tourism, but in the core zone, no human activities are permitted. All right, no human activities are permitted. Why we have created this buffer zone? So that we can reduce the anthropogenic impact on the core region. Okay. Then you have basically your transition zone. Okay, the transition zone basically allows the human habitation. So here you will have the human habitation, okay, and crop cultivation. So you will have the cultivation also. All right, and then surrounding in this, in the transition zone, you will also have the human settlement also. All right, so here you must understand the core zone, which is basically, the main area where, the biosphere reserve is there. So it is basically the area where no human activities are permitted. There is buffer area which is surrounded this core zone where the human activities like grazing is permitted, right? And the tourism is also permitted. In the transition area, the human habitation cultivation is also permitted. All right. So this is basically your biosphere reserve. So let's understand the news. So here the Indian Sundarbans, right, which is a part of the largest mangrove forest in the world, right, is a home of 428 species of the world. So here, a recent publication by the Zoological Survey of India, right, basically states that there are 428 species or bird species are found in the Sundarbans, right, or in the Indian Sundarbans, because these Sundarbans are also there in the Bangladesh side also. So we are talking for the Indian Sundarbans, which are there in the, or which are there with the India. All right. So why we call them mangrove forest? Because mangrove, right? The mangrove is one such varieties of the trees which are found basically in the Sundarban forest. And there are other varieties of the trees like sundari. So that is how the name called Sundarbans basically there. So there is a Sundari tree is also found in the Sundarbans. All right. Mangrove is one such species which are found basically in the Sundarbans area or in the Sundarban region. All right. So here, this publication of Geological Survey of India having the greater importance related to the bird species which are found. All right. And it will help not only to the documenting of the avifauna of the Sundarbans, right, but it will also serve the comprehensive photographic field guide for the region, right, whoever the bird lovers, or some of those, for better scientific and other purpose, we can use this, the this publication for, for the guiding of this region. All right. And the scientists also claim, the scientists from the Zoological Survey of India also claim that the 428 word species which are listed, right, are basically some of those species like mask fitpunt and buffy fish owl, right. These are basically recorded only from the Sundarban. So that means they are endemic from the Sundarban area. They are endemic from Sundarban area. All right. And this area is home to 9 out of 12 species of kingfishers. Okay. So kingfisher is also one of the species or bird species, important bird species. So 9 out of 12 species of the kingfishers are also found in the Sundarban region. All right. And some of the rare species like Goliath heron and spoon-billed sandpiper is also found in the Sundarban area or in the Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. So it is not only very rich in terms of, in terms of the vegetation, but also it is rich in terms of, those words which are endemic to the Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. Okay, so you can see here, it is the boundary which basically separates the Indian Sundarban to the Bangladesh Sundarban. So it is a Bangladesh. All right. And it is basically, located on the delta region. So it is a marshy region, first of all, you must understand. So here you can see the Sundarban National Park, and here you will have the Sundari tree or Sundarban, where you will have the mangrove type of plantation. All right. Fine. Next, the National Voters Day. All right. So the National Voters Day is celebrated, on 25th of January 2021. Okay. So here the Election Commission of India is basically celebrating the 11th National Voters Day on 25th of January 2021. All right. So here it is a 11th Voters Day because it was decided since 2011 that every year on January 25th, right, we will celebrate, or the country will celebrate, the National Voters Day. Okay. So it is basically, found or it is basically, to mark the foundation day of the Election Commission of India. Election Commission of India is also founded on 25th of January 1950. So it is the date we have chosen, right? And that day we will be celebrating. We are celebrating basically, the National Voters Day. And on that day in 1950, the Election Commission of India was basically founded. And this day, which is basically celebrated as a National Voters Day, was decided to celebrate since 2011. So it is the 11th such National Voters Day. All right. The main purpose of celebrating this National Voters Day is to basically to encourage, to facilitate, and to maximize the enrollment, right? Especially you must understand the enrollment to whom? The new voters, right? So the new voters, which basically, came, right, as per the eligibility, right? If they are 18 plus of the age, right, they can basically, we have the universal adult franchise. So any person who is basically, or anyone who is above 18 years of the old, right, 18 or 18 years of above, right, he will be able to cast his vote in the elections, both general elections of the parliament as well as for the state legislative assembly. So here the ultimate purpose of this National Voters Day is to encourage them, to facilitate them, and to maximize their enrollment so that they can participate, right, in the voters, in the voting, system in our country. All right. And the theme for this year's the National Voters Day is making our voters empowered, vigilant, safe, and informed. All right. So here the theme was so that, to make our voters empowered, vigilant, safe, and informed. All right. And during this event, the Honorable President of India would also confer the national awards for the year 2020-2021. All right. And here the President of India would also launch the Election Commission of India's web radio. Okay. So it is online with, it is in the lines with, the FM radio. So but it is, the Election Commission of India's web radio, which is basically named as Hello Voters. All right. So it is basically again to promote, to empower, to, to inform the voters in our country. Okay. So let's understand about this web radio, which is basically Election Commission of India's. So it is named as Hello Voters. Okay. So it is basically an online digital radio service which will be provided, right, to the voters free of cost. So it is basically, streaming certain programs. The ultimate purpose of streaming those programs is to increase the awareness of the voters, right? And this online digital radio service will be accessible through a link, and that link will be available on the Election Commission of India's website. So anyone can refer this link and can basically stream to those awareness programs. All right. And the ultimate purpose is to, to match the popularity of the web radio with FM radio services, right? So that it can reach out to the people, reach out to the voters, which can basically enroll themselves and can participate in the voting process. And it will also provide an information and the education on the electoral process. All right. So here you must understand, ultimate purpose is to educate them, to inform them, right, through songs, because ultimately you have to reach the voters, right, without video. So it is a, radio service. So here, how would you reach out? You have to reach out only through audio. So here you will have, the reachable process, like songs, through the songs, through dramas, through discussions, through sports, through stories of the elections, right? Both in English and the Hindi and regional languages from all over the country. So it will be provided, right, to the people in these languages, so that the people can participate in the electoral process. Okay. So it is basically 11th National Voters Day, which is basically celebrated on 25th of January 2021. All right. Next, National Girl Child Policy. So here, National Girl Child Day. So here you must understand, the National Girl Child Day basically celebrated in our country every year on the January 24th. On January 24th. So every year, January 24th, we celebrate the National Girl Child Day. All right. And the Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of our country, basically saluted, the daughters of our country on the National Girl Child Day, right? So here, you must understand, the National Girl Child Day was basically, celebrated on January 24th every year, and it was started by the Ministry of Women and the Child Development in 2008. In 2008, so it was celebrated. It was celebrated, right? Basically since 2008 onward. Since 2008 onward. All right. Then ultimate aim of this National Child Day or National Child Girl Day, right? Ultimate aim was to spread awareness about the Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao Abhiyan. So this scheme was launched by Prime Minister himself in 2015 at Panipat in Haryana, right? So he basically launched this scheme, or launched this scheme in Panipat, Haryana. All right. And the ultimate aim of launching this scheme is to generate the awareness on the issues of declining child sex ratio, because you must understand, there are many problems with related to the female empowerment, as well as, like the child sex ratio. The child sex ratio is also very low in our country. The sex ratio is also very low, because the child sex ratio is already low. And the ultimate aim to, create those positive environment, right, around valuing the girl child, especially in our country, because in certain, societies like Haryana, in certain part of Rajasthan also, like people, they are very conservative towards the female, especially, right. They seek, the male, as, their child, rather than seeking the female, baby. So it is problem with, the attitude with the people, right? They should consider both male and female equally, right, while giving birth to them. All right, both of them are equally, capable enough to do all the things. All right. So here you can see, it is a girl. So the girl picture, right? My mother-in-law want a boy. So here, the Sasuma want a boy. So it is a question of prestige for the mother-in-law. In some societies, the mother-in-law wants only son. They don't want daughter, right? So here they always say that a boy should take the birth in our home, right? And the girl thinking that, are we still living in the prehistoric days, right? Basically the girl is basically speaking to, or the mother is basically speaking to the mother-in-law, that are we still living in the prehistoric days, right? You were a girl child too, why are you asking for the boy when you are also girl, right? Why don't you ask for the girl baby? All right. Next, the green bonds. Okay, so first of all, bonds are generally, an instrument, or it is a financial instrument to raise the money, right, for various infrastructural projects, for various projects. And the green bonds are basically those bonds which are issued so that these, raised money can be used for those projects which are green. That means which are not causing environmental destruction, rather than which are basically used for, conserving the environment, right, without depleting those, resources, or without depleting, the environmental, the vibrancy. So these bonds are basically used for those green projects throughout the world. So these green bonds are basically used not only in our India, but also in the world also. All right, so it is basically a tool where, a certain set of raised money will be used, right, for, uh, for better environmental benefits, for better climatic benefits, right? So so first of all, the news basically flashing by a report which was published by the Reserve Bank of India. So it is a study which was published by the Reserve Bank of India. All right, and this according to this study, the cost of issuing the green bonds have remained higher than other bonds in India. So it is the India specific. So this report says that the issuing cost of these green bonds, which are mainly used, right, which are mainly used, for climate and environmental projects. Ultimately, purpose is to use this money, for environmental and climatic projects. So these raised money will be used for this. So issuing this bond, right, will the generally it is costly. So it is, the issuing cost of these bonds are very costly than other bonds in India, and this is due to largely asymmetric information which is available in our markets. So this whole costly affair is related to this asymmetric information. And as the report says that, or the study says that, the average coupon rate of these green bonds, which are issued since 2015, right, with a maturity of 5 to 10 years, right? Obviously, in 5 to 10 years, you would have to pay back those money back, right? So certain set of maturity will be there with those green bonds. So those green bonds which are issued since 2015, which have the maturity between 5 to 10 years, right? The average coupon rate or issuing rate generally remains higher, right, than the corporate or the government bonds with the similar tenure. That means, right, the corporate bonds are also issued for, for corporate, investment. The government bonds also issued for raising the money. Same thing here, the green bonds are also issues for mitigating the environment and the climatic changes, right? Here the average cost of these green bonds remains higher when we compare with the corporate as well as the government bonds in India, right? If we compare with the US dollar denominated green bonds, right? So here the cost of US dollar denominated green bonds with the tenure of more than or equal to 10 years, right? The coupon rates was, however, lower than corporate bonds. So this study also claimed this, that for those, the maturity rate or the maturity period of 10 years or more, the US denominated green bonds, right, the coupon rate was lower than your corporate bonds, right? And most of these green bonds in India, which are issued by the public sector units or PSUs, and the corporate with a better financial health. And it is also most crucial that those units which are better in terms of financial health, they are issuing these green bonds, right? And it is evident from the fact that the private sector issuer of the green bonds on an average reported the lower debt to asset ratio compared to non-issuers of the green bond. All right. So it is also, one of the important fact which was noted through this report. And regarding the green bonds also, the report also says that the green bond totally out of total bond market, or out of total bond which are issued, the green bonds constituted only 0.7% of the bonds. So you see here, only 0.7% of the bonds basically consisting of your green bonds, right, since 2018. Okay. And basically banks which are lending to non-conventional energy constituted around 7.9% of the outstanding bank credit to the power sector as of March 2020. So it is just in data, you can look into. So the bond market, or the green bond market in India, is basically very very weak, only 0.7%, right? And the bank lending for the non-conventional energy, because conventional energy sources are not climate friendly, environmental friendly. So the bank lending to certain set of climate friendly and environmental friendly constituted only 7.9% of the outstanding bank credit, which is also on the lower side according to this study. And high borrowing cost, right, it is also one of the important roadblock of, you know issuing these green bonds, are perhaps the most important challenge which we are facing right now. And it basically indicate that there is certain set of asymmetric information which is basically causing this problem in our country, right? And therefore developing a better information management for issuing these green bonds are very very important, right? So we need a better information management system in our country, right? So that we can reduce, right, the maturity mismatches which are there with the green bonds. And we can certainly reduce, or we should certainly reduce the borrowing cost, which lead to the efficient resources allocation in this segment in our country, so that we can use these raised monies in certain set of climatic and environment related projects. All right. Next, 2K time trial. So it is basically a speed endurance test. It is basically a speed endurance test. So you see, basically it is a speed endurance test. Okay. Okay, it is the speed endurance test. So what is the significance of this T speed endurance test? The significance is that through that speed endurance test, we will assess, right, the the fitness of our cricketers, right? So that we can use this parameter for selecting those cricketers in the basically tournaments. So ultimately, this time trial is basically 2 kilometer time trial, right? So it will have certain standards which is based on the speed endurance test, right? The any player who is basically going to be selected, right, or any player who is going to be fit according to this 2 kilometer time trial should have certain set of the minimum standard according to this speed endurance test. So that minimum standard is basically this 2 kilometer time trial basically set an 8 minutes and 15 seconds, right? So it is basically a parameter or a benchmark that is 8 minutes and 15 seconds for the fast bowlers. They should obtain, or they should basically you know would have this much, the endurance, right, with them. And 8 minutes 30 seconds for the batsmen, for the spinners, and for the wicket keepers, right? And these parameters, right, they are become mandatory for the India's centrally contracted cricketers, which will be ultimately assessed based on this speed endurance test parameters. All right. And on a standard athletics track, the distance which is basically covered in the five laps of 400 meters each, right? The timing which we are basically measuring, right, with a stopwatch or an electronic clock to measure this 8 minutes and 15 seconds and 8 minutes of 13 seconds for these spinners. And this 2K time trial is basically speed endurance test, as I told you. And it is according to according to Ramji Srinivasan, right? This speed endurance test will be would be basically very much useful, right, for winning World Cup for our team, right? So it will be assessing the team strength as well as the conditioning of those team of that team. All right. And if the athlete meet that particular standard for a time trial, he will be suited, or he will be termed fit. if he or she is not meeting that particular standard, he will be declared unfit for that, right? And it will also be used for drawing of any sort of a fitness schedule, because you must understand, if any player or if any athlete termed unfit, right? So we can actually make the fitness schedule for that particular player, right? So he or she can work upon himself or herself to improve himself or herself according to that fitness schedule. So it will be helping, right, to not only to the players but also to to selectors to ultimately select those athletics who are basically fit according to this speed endurance test. And according to Srinivasan, the Sri Lanka, South Africa, New Zealand, all countries basically put cricketers through this time trial test or the speed endurance test, through which we can assess their performance. All right. Next, the lunar sample 76015,143. So it is basically a lunar sample, right? This is basically brought from the lunar, right? So here you must understand, as 46th president of the United States of America, right? The Joe Biden has taken the office, right? So after taking the office, he made certain changes in the Oval Office or in the office of the president of this USA. So here he has made certain changes. First changes he made basically in the commander in the chief, the principal place of the business, right? This commander in the chief, right, place is basically visited by the most powerful peoples in the world. So he had made certain changes in this Oval Office also. All right, because here you must understand the Oval Office is also considered as a commander in the chief office, because the president of USA is also considered as a commander in chief, obviously, right? So obviously the most powerful people basically visited this office, right, often for taking various discussions, and often for various directives from the president of USA. And certain changes basically also made in terms of the addition of this moon rock. Okay, so it is basically a lunar sample or moon rock sample, which basically brought down by the astronauts. All right, so it is basically the moon is basically the earth's natural satellite, all of you know about this. And the astronauts basically brought down, right, the sample from the moon, right, on the Apollo 17 mission in December 1972. So this sample was also put in the Oval Office, right, for as per the direction given by the president of USA. So this lunar sample, which is named at 76015,143. So this lunar sample was basically weighing around 332 grams, which was collected by the Apollo 17 mission, and which was collected by the astronaut Ronald Evans and the Harrison Smith and Eugene Cernan. So it will be placed, right, in the basically in the Oval Office. So rock have been placed in the Oval Office. Why we have placing this rock basically in the Oval Office? Because it will also a symbolically recognition to the earlier generation, their ambitions, that they have brought this the lunar rock to the surface, to the Earth's surface. And it also count their achievements, their accomplishments, their ambitions, right? And also it will motivate, inspire and support the America's current Mars exploration approach, right? Which is basically also will be termed as a the first human footprint on the Mars, right? So which will be the future mission, where it will be one of the important the footsteps of the human being on the Mars. All right, so certain changes have been made. So it is basically related to this sample, which is named as lunar sample 76015,143. So it is basically, you can see this sample. So it is basically that lunar sample which was brought down by the astronauts, right, in the Apollo 17 mission in 1972, and it will be placed in the Oval Office. All right, next next is Peloton bike. So what is that Peloton bike? First of all, the Peloton bike is basically an exercise bike, right? So it is basically an exercise equipment, right, which will be permitted inside the White House, right? So the bike was basically based on the US President Joe Biden's swearing ceremony. So here the cyber security experts basically examined this Peloton bike, which will be ultimately placed within the White House, right? And as a piece of exercise, which will be generally done by the US President Joe Biden, who will be using this Peloton bike for his daily the working for for working exercise and for other work, right? So this piloton exercise or piloton bike was ultimately allowed as a safe to be placed within the White House. So it was given the cyber security clearance and other safety clearance by those officials of White House. So here, about the piloton bike. The piloton bike is made by the Piloton company, right? It is basically, this bike is basically connected with the internet, and it will have certain indoor cycling, right, with camera, with microphones, and with tablet attached. So this bike, it's not a bike, it's basically, you can say it's a cycle, right? So it's a part of cycling exercise. So this cycle will have cameras, microphones, and the tablets, right? These cameras, microphones, and the tablets will be used, right, for live streaming certain fitness classes. So the person who is basically sitting on this Peloton bike can basically look into those fitness classes that will be live streams, and they can basically connect or communicate with one another also based on that microphone, the tablets, which is attached with this Peloton bike. And this Peloton bike basically priced at around 1.8 lakhs or 2500 US dollars rupees. And this Peloton bike is basically made up of the carbon steel and aluminum, and it is weighing around 60 kg. Okay. And the users like the Joy Biden, who is basically would be using this Peloton bike, these users will be required to pay around 39 US dollars per month, or around 2895 rupees per month for this the classes which will be conducted or which will be streamed online, right? And today the company and its exercise bike in particular have the cult following across the United States for better exercise purpose. All right, so you can see this Peloton bike. So here the person who is basically handling this Peloton bike, and it is basically a tablet which is connected with the Peloton bike. So here the classes will be live streamed, right? The person who is basically using this Peloton bike will be taking this class simultaneously and using this Peloton bike as a exercise tool. So it is basically an exercise tool which will be used for streaming, right? Basically to those certain exercise related right classes. All right. Next, the limited liability partnerships. Okay, so let's understand. So the news basically related to the certain set of firms which are also known as limited liability partnerships. Okay, so here the company law committee. This company law committee was basically headed by the corporate affairs secretary Rajesh Verma. So this committee or the company law committee basically recommended certain measures, right? So this committee led by the Rajesh Verma basically recommended that the 12 offenses under the LLP or Limited Liability Partnership Act, right? We decriminalized, right? So certain 12 offenses should be decriminalized with the immediate effect, right? And the LLPs or the limited liability funds should be allowed to issue the non-convertible debentures. So that is called NCD, means non-convertible debentures, to raise the fund. So debenture is also an instrument like bond, right, which will be used to raise the fund. So so this committee was in the firm recommended that the LLP should be used for issuing this non-convertible debentures, right? So that they can raise the money, they can raise the fund, so that they can basically improve the ease of doing business, right, for those limited liability funds or limited liability firms. All right, so several recommendations, right, which are given by the Rajesh Verma led the company law committee. So it has basically several offenses which basically recommended by this company law committee to be decriminalized immediately, related to the timely filling of certain the procedural requirement, including the annual reports, right, filling of changes in the partnership status of the limited liability partnership, right, firms, and certain set of related to when this set of the things are not related to the fraud. So such practices or such offenses should be immediately decriminalized from basically uh, from the Limited Liability Partnership Act. And this panel is also recommended that the companies be required to pay penalties for non-compliance instead of fines. So instead of fines, they will be provided certain penalties if they do not comply with Limited Liability Partnership Act provisions, right? And only if they're found guilty, right, of the misconduct by a court. and the registrar of the company, right, would have the authority to levy these penalties, right, for the contravention of the provisions of the Limited Liability Partnership Act. So the registrar of the companies will have the authority, and which can basically, impose, which can impose those penalties to those limited liability partnership, firms. And this, company, this company law committee also recommended that this limited liability partnership, firms which are currently not allowed to issue these debt securities will be immediately permitted to issue these non-convertible debentures, right? So that the issuing of these non-convertible debentures will be used, right, to raise the capital, and this capital and the finance will be used ultimately for ease of doing business, right, with those limited liability, firms. And this move of issuing this non-convertible debentures by those limited liability funds ultimately would benefit the startups and the small firms which require, the heavy capital investment in this, you know in this region. So here, let's understand the definition of private limited company and the limited liability partnership company. So here, in the limited liability partnership, basically can be owned by a corporate and entity or an individuals, all right. And here the private limited company can be owned by an individual, or it can be owned by the group of individuals, or it can be owned by corporate entity or the individuals, all right. So it is just a difference between the private limited company and the limited liability partnership firm, all right. Next, the Upendra Nath Brahma, right? So let's understand what is the Upendra Nath Brahma. So, the Upendra Nath Brahma basically, basically, a Bodo social activist who was basically belongs to Assam, and he was also the former president of All Bodo Student Union. So he was basically a social activist. So the Union Home Minister Amit Shah basically said that the Assam government is setting up three degree colleges, right, especially in the Bodo region, right. And these degree colleges will be used ultimately for the educational empowerment of this Bodo region, right. And ultimately the tribute is being paid to this Upendra Nath Brahma, right, by opening these institutes in his name. So ultimately the institute will be open in his name, called Upendranath Brahma, who was basically a social activist and who was basically a former, the president of All Bodo Students Union. And here the Brahma was born in, Boragiri village of Dotma, and it is the basically small township at the Kokranjar district of Assam, which is also comes under part of your Bodoland region, right? And here you must understand the title of the guardian of Bodos, which was granted to the Brahma, right, after his death. So the title of Bodofa, or the guardian of the Bodos, which was granted posthumously means after his death, right, right, on 8th of May 1990, right, on his recognition for his vision and the leadership for his work towards the upliftment of the Bodo region. And his life, or the Brahma's life, will be celebrated every year, right, on his anniversary of his death, which is now called as the Bodofa Day, because of his sacrifice which he made for the upliftment of this Bodo region. So here you can see the Bodoland Territorial Autonomous District. So these are four Bodoland Territorial Autonomous Districts, and it is basically a map of Assam, and it is basically the river called Brahmaputra, which flows through Assam, and Kokranjar, Chirang, Baksa, and Udalguri, right? These are basically the four Bodoland Territorial Autonomous Districts, which are part of the Bodoland region, and right, that's all. Fine. Next, the Bal Shakti Purashkar. Okay. So here you must understand the Bal Shakti Purashkar was basically announced by the government of India. Okay. And here, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with, will be basically the, the awardees of Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Bal Purashkar, right, on 25th of January 2021. So the Prime Minister will basically interact with them, and the government of India confers this Bal Shakti Puraskar under Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Bal Purashkar, right, to certain, to the children which are having exceptional abilities and outstanding achievement in the field of innovation, in the field of scholastic achievements, in the field of sports, in the field of arts, in the field of culture, in the field of social service, and the field of bravery. So, right. So, to count those exceptional abilities and outstanding achievements, right? These awards will be conferred to childrens. And this year, 2032 applicants from across the countries are already selected, right, under the different category of Bal Shakti Puraskar, and which are selected under the Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Bal Puraskar 2021. Right. All right. So thank you very much for attending this class. We'll meet again tomorrow for our new current affairs class. Thank you very much.